Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, speed gamers around the world, Zelda fans alike. You're tuned in to Speed Gaming 3 for yet another Link to the Past Randomizer League, Week 3 Randomizer Seed. I am Eudaimonistic, joined today by Irritable Penguin. Penguin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Looking forward to seeing these runners deal with a whole lot of chaos on their screens, as everything up to this point this week for Randomizer has been very fun.
Absolutely, with basically no exceptions. We've seen open mode, we've seen ambrosia. If you thought those were wild wrenches to throw into things, imagine cannon guards and rollers in all sorts of overworld locations. So, not only that, but we're gonna have bosses shuffled. 3 of them will repeat themselves. As for the teams, the spoilers up against its mitts, Shadyforce taking on Falcon. This should be an exciting matchup.
Yeah, I never knew there was a cannon guard until 3 days before this week when I decided I'd try an Randomizer just to get an idea, and saw when I'm thinking some kind of weird glitch or bug, and then realized it's an enemy that's in the code that never made it into the base game.
Yeah, you gotta love that. The creativity of the dev side of the community. Just putting together, ways for us to see things we never would have seen. And that's truly what Randomizer is. You're gonna see very strange enemy configurations. One thing that a lot of our runners are gonna be looking out for this week are inconvenient wall masters, as we mentioned, crystals, or crystal rollers. But here we go. We're starting off. This is an open start. We're gonna find boots in the sanctuary. That's interesting.
That is a quick start. I like that.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, you do.
3 crystals in the light world. None of them appear to be 5/6. I might have been wrong.
Looks like we just have 3 normal ones. Immediately getting a Bonk Rocks check as Shadyforce goes over and does the Uncle Piece. Fun part of this Randomizer is the fact that there is no damage changes, so all these Dark World enemies that we're seeing hanging around the Light World will do their base damage to our players.
Yeah, and quite a few of these enemies, that means like instant death. Until we get a little stronger, and a hammer is going to be at least something we can fight back with.
Yeah, that hammer might keep him in the front of escape. Might not, though, as we've seen some pretty horrid-looking fronts of escape through this, with the chain chomps hanging out or Lionels around there and all that type of stuff.
And of course, one of the great hallmarks of Randomizer is enemies in positions that they can't do anything in. You're going to see a lot of that in this race. Shadyforce taking a moment to look at the whatever that enemy was that was clipped into the wall. That won't be the first time we see something like that. Or, I'm sorry, that won't be the last time.
No, but the biggest benefit we see there, of course, is when going to get the old man out of the mountain. Pretty much any enemy that's going to replace those bats is going to be stuck in the wall, making that even a little bit easier of a dark room if these guys choose to take that route.
Easier, funnier, same thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. I see we have Quake over here on Falcon's side. He did give us a look at the Lumberjack ledge. Based on the ledge, egg is not required, but we got to find a few items to make sure that we don't have to see him anyway.
Yeah, the alternative, of course, would be accessing the Dark World through the Castle Tower. And let me tell you, this is one of the things you don't want to do. Castle Tower, a very unfriendly place in Randomizer.
There's nothing quite like a full screen roller going across a dark room with the pits on it in the Agate Tower.
Yeah, so something to... Ooh, that Hinox. Oh, Shadyforce going to take the first death of the seed here at 2 hours, 20 minutes, which is par for the course for Randomizer, really.
Yeah, the one shot from the Dark World enemy with green mail and 3 hearts, relatively common in the beginning if you're not careful enough.
So that's something to consider. As you mentioned, there might be positions where you literally have to damage boost just to get through, and that's not considered in the logic. You're just expected to find a way. So invulnerability items, very valuable in this mode. Extra health. I doubt many people are going to skip it until they're 10 plus hearts, or maybe, some armor upgrades.
Yeah, it would not surprise me at all to see someone decide blue mail sitting on Desert Ledge is a priority or something along those lines. Items you don't normally see them go for will probably be grabbed with relative quickness here.
Yeah, the good news for both of these two is that they have boots. And Falcon had a slight advantage for having them a little earlier, but in the grand scheme of things, having boots for the entire seed really makes Randomizer a lot easier to deal with. We're still looking for a sword, which will make dashing a more powerful addition to our arsenal, but at the very least, we can run more than twice as fast as we can walk.
For sure. And so far, Kakariko coming up not too great. We got a shovel, so that'll give us a hold on just how good Kakariko does for us till we see that.
Unfortunately, a bit of a scam here at the bottle vendor. Just 10 more arrows that we could have had off of tier 1 tree poles, so Falcon gonna go check the chicken shack, opting to deal with the enemies with a bomb carry.
And then getting dealt with himself. Yikes.
Well, he doesn't have too short of a fuse. Thankfully, did manage to destroy the wall, so when he does go back there, he will be able to check, but stuff like that is pretty easy to forget when you have an unfortunate death, you know, if he doesn't come right back there.
Yep. Looks like he's going to take care of the shovel piece first, probably come up from the south side to finish out Kakariko. Little does he know, if he headed up toward the uncle area, he'd get a hammer to make it a little bit easier for him to get back into that chicken hut.
Well, this roller here, not too inconvenient. If it was rolling the other direction, it might be worse. But so some thieves kind of in the neighborhood. Not quite the village of outcasts here in the light world, but also not that far from it.
No. The beauty of having the Randomizer turned on is that thieves can be killed, as opposed to the vanilla or base version, where they just are a constant smacking annoyance.
Well, 2 bushes would be enough for Falcon to make his way back into Kakariko. This is giving shadyforce some time back on the choice to check Uncle first, as with boots, he's now where Falcon was when he died.
Yep, and we're seeing 20 bucks in the race game, so I don't think we're going to see either runner go for that. Shadyforce is going to give us that first look at the chicken hut.
Hey, those are the bombs he needed.
That was actually a timely refill. That was 3 bombs, and he has 3 now.
Alright, so shadyforce, in good shape for the South Shore Mini Moldorm Cave. Don't envy his use of hammer for that, but hey, more bombs if you want to go that route instead.
Absolutely. And we're going to see a refill on the bombs for Falcon here. I believe when we saw the library, it was a piece of heart up there. A little surprised Falcon didn't grab it, just for the convenience of potentially getting another heart piece later when he gets down on the South Shore, but we'll see what Shadyforce decides to do.
Also skipping it.
A couple of brave runners here. I'd be grabbing every heart piece I could.
Yeah, I gotta say, when you have 3 or 4 hearts to work with, even if it's not for now, because you know you're not gonna get a full health refill, you might just end up finding one like late in a dungeon, and if that's your 4th one, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, always the best way to get it is when you're getting that last chest right before the boss and you're down to 2 hearts and you get that clutch refill, feel a little better about getting in there, especially when you don't know what the boss is going to be.
Well, having spoken with Shady many times in the past, I get the feeling that he really thinks Falcon's, you know, somebody he can't afford to give, you know, even seconds to, so this might speak to our runners' opinions of each other, really.
Absolutely could. Could also mean that we'll see some interesting divergence from general normal routing, just try to get that edge that, you know, they might not get otherwise.
Yeah, so far we don't know a whole lot about what we're going to need for the rest of the seed. Falcon here picking up our first lift upgrade here in the dam, which shadyforce is right behind him to do, with the advantage of having that hammer already. Although, I guess it depends on what's in Mini Moldorm Cave, whether that hammer is going to be a good weapon.
That's fair too, as we may see something that it just absolutely does nothing for.
Or at least something very hard to deal with.
Oh, for me, that's one and the same. A damp mushroom, so early fetch quest could lead to something good, though our first one with the shovel did not.
So it's not Friday, so I can't really say that's so fetch, right?
I think you can get away with it.
Still, though, nothing but fetch quests here in the Sphere 1 locations. Kind of interesting.
And Mini Moldorm came looking mighty vanilla -1 Mini Helmasaur.
That mini helmet might be the thing that gives Falcon the most trouble until he gets that hammer, because the only real way for him to kill it, I think, is through a knockback off of a bomb.
Yep. Earlier today, I was watching someone with the hook shot just knock them into the pit, similar to what Shadyforce just did with the hammer.
Yeah, that was deceptively easy. I mean, like, normally that's not that easy.
No, that's the... You have two pits to the left and right, just smack him and watch him go down it.
Oh, I do think he's going to stop for those drops, though.
Oh, absolutely. Full magic and full health, that's a wonderful thing to see. Especially when you have those BMOs outside that you know you have to go back by when you leave here.
Well, that's Moon Pearl for us, and Flippers. The Waterfall Cave and Zora area is looking very appealing right now with all that cash as well.
And that actually just completely killed Aga. Because we have access now to everything.
Yeah, Falcon doesn't know it yet without that hammer, but we'll find that out before long. I can't imagine he possibly goes to Aghanim before that. We don't even have a sword, actually, come to think of it. So the access requirements for Aghanim, surprisingly, they can hear in the beginning of this seed. Now, the interesting thing is whether or not we'll see Shadyforce stop to farm rupees here, as he does have a few more, having not bought more bombs.
Yeah, being that close to Zora money, having the ability to just drop down in and get it done now, he might. Chest not helping him with money, but I'm sure that heart's very welcome. Also setting himself up a water walk here, so I think we are going to see at least a play down to Hobo.
Yeah, we didn't see Falcon pick up the rock outside for how far away he is. Oh, that's a mimic. And a Gibdo in the water. It doesn't look like Falcon's got Zora on the horizon right now. Might be going to the area, but probably not trying to get the rupees unless he finds them in Waterfall Cave.
Oh, for sure. And might also just be thinking, grab Hobo, see what happens there, and then maybe go turn in the mushroom.
Alright, well, Shadyforce will lose the water walk, but keeps the Flipper's state to be able to swim, and Falcon actually accidentally losing his water walk as well.
Those are some nicely placed rollers, as they're not covering our player's ability to get in and out of that little corridor there.
Yeah, both of our runners also getting their Lake Highway Island Scout, which is our first visible bottle. So that's a sick kid check that's on the table somewhere, sometime. We're still going to need a mirror. And I think that's really all we will need, actually, to get to that.
Yeah, at this point, that would be it. Getting our first look at Waterfall Cave here now. We got a piece of heart and some bombs. So, Waterfall Cave not paying out enough to give us the Zora money. Wonder if we'll see the ledge or if Shady's just going to opt to go out elsewhere. Looking like we're going to see the ledge.
Of course, this ends up being like 100 rupees, and hey, perfectly planned, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Or it could be 50 and leave him just short.
Yeah, I hate to see it.
So Falcon's going to give us our first look at the back of Escape. We saw the front area briefly on the uncle side without going in, so be interesting to see what Falcon decides to do with what he finds back here.
Yeah, this being our first look at the back, we'll actually see Shady jump in as well. Will be extra help for the two runners, and I guess a couple of extra bombs. That map, of course, not useful for us to find here. We would have hoped to have been able to exclude a chest because of it, but we haven't done everything else yet.
It's always the best when you have the map sitting in the dark cross chest.
Yeah, arguably the most annoying place to check. So that's a save and quit for Shadyforce. Falcon also save and quitting, going to head over to Northern Hyrule to go up the mountain, it looks like, in the dark.
Looks like Falcon's going to give us the mushroom check.
Okay,
and
I was
Shady is giving us our first look at the Dark World.
Yeah, this part doesn't surprise me. I mean, it may only be 13 minutes in, but Hype Cave check is just very attractive right now.
Oh, for sure. And Hype Cave check, maybe go up to Pyramid quickly. If Pod's crystal, there you go and check the front of it. only dungeon that we have that's going to require the bow 100% because the fact that the statue's there to have to shoot in the eye. Otherwise, Eastern, where we normally would see the bow required, is not going to be because we will have accessible and killable enemies in the rooms where the red Igors typically are.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up, that rooms, or, well, kill rooms that require certain weapons are generally not going to require the same things. That goes for GT Mimics, I mean, as you mentioned, Eastern Palace Igors. We'll also get our first sword from Shady Force alongside a map check. I see Thieves Town, Swamp Palace, and Palace of Darkness as pendants. Our 5/6 are Misery Mire and Ice Palace.
You love to see a pendant on Swamp because it might not have to go in there. You hate to see a pendant on Pod.
Yeah, so Shady Force taking quite a lot of time to contemplate that map. Perhaps his method of tracking it, but maybe also just considering the options.
And as you know, someone who has tracked a couple races, I'm very appreciative of the fact that he gives us that extra opportunity to get a good look at it as opposed to scrambling to find it after the fact.
Yeah, it's way nicer.
So, tracker here, Merc 249, is absolutely on top of it anyway, and we wouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, you can always count on Merc to keep you on the straight and narrow as a commentator. It's pretty awesome to have a crew behind you that works, and keeping the audience up to date at all times.
Now, we have Falcon going up to the Zora area. Falcon does have enough money to check Zora, and Shady getting $20 back from the dig game.
Yeah, kind of interesting that we didn't see Shady dig for more rupees, maybe anticipating that he's going to get a bunch more soon anyway. But yeah, Falcon, having been a little bit behind to get to Zora, ended up having more rupees to work with. That's an interesting routing choice, and we'll see if it pays off immediately right here.
Based on Zora history, I'm going to go with no. But since I've said it, it now will probably be a decent item.
Yo, what's up with this fire snake? He's walking on water.
Yeah, he's enjoying himself there. And we have another sword. So Zora's got Shady's Master Sword, where Falcon going to Hype Cave, choosing to do so, will get their Master Sword there.
But Penguin, I guess now I see the point of getting 500 rupees.
Absolutely.
All right, well, Falcon staying sharp over here, hoping to slash his way through the remainder of the seed. Does have a weapon to work with that's a little more convenient, and that's going to send him towards Escape to pick up that hammer and likely to follow into the Dark World after Shady Force.
Yep, and he'll be very relieved to see that hammer, because for him right now, with the item loadout he has, it's either another sword points him to Aghanim, or a hammer points him away.
Yeah, so all the best news for Falcon's progression here. This will make it a little more efficient, and because once he gets that Master Sword, really all the overworld becomes a little more friendly for him. Shady Force won't have that sword for presumably quite a while. He lucked out that it wasn't a mirror on Zora, because that would have been the hardest thing for him to go find.
Yes, absolutely, because you got to think if he's going to go and leave Zora off the table there, probably hope to round back in with Catfish, maybe even the northern part of Hyrule at a later time with Boots and Mirror. So getting a cape out of the brewery there, that's always a wonderful find in an Randomizer game.
Yeah, not only does it make us invisible and invincible, it's also a means of just getting past certain things and that you would normally not see outside of Randomizer. We've already seen a few crystal rollers all over the place. I keep calling them crystal rollers because there's a room in Turtle Rock called the Crystal Roller Room that just has a crystal switch. They're just rollers.
Name works for me. I don't know what half the names are, so I just rely on you to make them up for me.
Well, that was a ribbit that just interrupted Shady Force's Thieves Town. That little rabbit dude. Normally, not a fan of you.
Yeah, I love those things just because they have a text box.
Yeah, pretty rare. Well, they would ordinarily be rare.
Yes. And so Falcon going right into Hype Cave, getting that Master Sword. Gotta be happy to see that. Shady, meanwhile, is going to give us our look at Thieves Town front, which he's getting a surprisingly small amount of lag for, based on the fact that there's so many enemies and sprites that need to get loaded into this area.
Yeah, typically Thieves Town a laggy mess. We're seeing some of it
Yeah,
now.
here it
Oh,
comes.
goodness.
He picked up that lamp and everything went laggy.
Well, apparently the game's struggling to render with so much additional light in the room.
Yep. Now, the interesting thing with Thieves Town here too is we don't have to go and blow up the ceiling to see who the boss is. And what I've seen from a lot of runners throughout this week is a basically ceiling and basement area gamble from Thieves Town where they just go straight to the boss, take them out, and don't worry about the left side for a bit. Wonder what Shady's gonna do here.
I mean, between the Hinoxes and Zazaxes and, oh my goodness, all these guards, he is narrowly avoiding death here. Almost getting grabbed as well. Alright, what's the boss for us today?
Looking like we got a land molus in here. One, now a half heart and a hammer. That's brave.
Yeah, I mean, it's brave, but there's like no way. I mean, Shady might be, even if he had perfect execution there, that's an unreasonable fight at half a heart.
Oh, absolutely. I would have been, my jaw would have been on the floor had he cleaned that up. Now, interestingly enough, choosing to leave Thieves Town entirely as opposed to checking that left side.
Yeah, I want to say between the 3 or 4 hard damaging enemies that he had available in front of him, I understand that choice. I mean, it's a pretty difficult, dangerous dungeon to be doing right now.
Yeah, and also it is just a pendant. Perhaps he was just hitting the boss to hopefully grab the green pendant and bring it over to Sahas when he hits the east side.
Yeah, good point. So, I mean, not entirely a reason to be fighting him just yet. We'll try to reduce our likelihood by checking other overworld things first. And Skullwood's front, basically overworld in a lot of runners' minds.
Oh yeah, I treat Skullwood's front like it's an overworld check all the time. And actually, speaking as a hospital, we didn't see much of value in his hut there.
Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. You know, you kind of want to find something to help you out in Eastern Palace before you go check it. Falcon will go check it and does not have the lamp available to Shadyforce out of Thieves Town. That's going to really stink because dark rooms and Randomizer, very different sort of thing.
Yeah, Randomizer dark rooms are never fun. I'm sure Falcon could probably find his way through, though depending on what enemy holds the key in that back room could make all the difference there. But even if just getting to the big key chest they find something of value, they're going to think they're out of sequence where we know they'd really just be in logic.
Yeah, that lamp being so accessible really does make, you know, the choices that Falcon makes in here kind of more important. I mean, if you really dive deep and go all the way to the boss and finish, you might be spending an extra minute in here, depending on how your dark rooms and when you don't know what the enemies are, depending on how that goes.
Well, we got a Beamos guarding the 2 little skull or skeleton hallways there for Skullwood.
I'm not sure what Shadyforce is trying to do here. Might have been contemplating a death to try and refill health. Ooh, jeez.
Yeah, I wouldn't have blamed him if that was his option there. That door's right there. You just walked in. It's a free refill, relatively quick.
I was waiting for that wall master as well. For a second there, I thought there wasn't going to be one. I thought I saw Shady waiting for it.
I believe the wall masters are a required enemy in Skullwoods. I don't think they are allowed to shuffle out.
That makes sense, and I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and guess it's because of the way the wall masters are coded. They probably work very well in Skullwoods and not very well in a lot of other places. I know if you do it in the overworld, you can do some real buggy things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen them in a couple of other dungeons, but I think just based on the fact that you can fall into Skullwoods and all that fun stuff, as you know, the uniqueness of that dungeon by itself, I think they're a hard requirement in there.
All right, so we talked a whole lot about these dark rooms in Eastern. So far, looking kind of tame. We're seeing some berries as well as at least 1 fire bar per room so far. Falcon making his way through the first part, no problems. It's the second part, though, I think that's really, really stressful.
Yeah, the second part will be the definite test of metal there. Firebar's actually making it, I think, a bit easier to navigate because it gives you an idea of where in the room you are in relation to that at all times.
Yeah, that frame of reference really counts. This is another room that can be kind of weird in Eastern Palace. Normally it's a big key skip room, but the Hinox being nice and friendly, walking away from where the anti-fairies would normally stand.
Yeah, we're still not used to seeing people not do damage boost to get that pot. Meanwhile, we get the mirror right over here from the old man for Shady Force.
Vanilla mirror?
Vanilla mirror.
That's the best place you can find it for Shady Force, really. So
Absolutely.
this gives him reason when he gets back to the East Dark World, to maybe consider a Catfish check and then a Zora check. It's pretty likely that at some point, Shady Force at least has the option to consider that Master Sword.
For sure. Though I think first we're going to have him see his way over to the Tower of Hera.
Yeah, may as well do all the mountain while you're here. That hammer makes this a very straightforward decision.
And with all the checks we have on the east side, he's probably hoping to see the mitts over there, make this a one trip till he has to go do Turtle Rock later. Yeah, well, hookshot as well, but...
Well, I gotta say, very impressed with Falcon's darkroom navigation. He's got just one more enemy in his path. It looks like a Beamos in the darkroom as well. He has the key, and there's our Titan's mitts here in Tower of Hera, so we'll see Falcon take some health refill, but Shady Force getting yet another progressive item that gives him an edge over Falcon in this race.
Yep, so he will be able to get that virtual full clear of the east side of Death Mountain, minus the 3 hookshot cave chests, provided, of course, that we don't find the hookshot neck. Falcon, having that key, had no problem getting through that room, getting up through that locked door. Now just going to get to the boss, and depending on what he has for the boss, we may not have the loadout for it.
Yeah, we do have the means to kill quite a few bosses right now, but there are still a handful that are pretty much untouchable with this equipment set. We definitely want to at least find a fire rod and an ice rod so that we don't have to worry about Trinex later, but might not be necessary just yet.
I don't think I've ever seen a mini Moldorm be just ahead, as we did in that last room the Falcon was in.
I mean, if you think that's wild, you should see the regular Moldorm.
And we have Cold Stare that's unkillable without Bombos or Fire Rod, so Eastern Palace is going to have to wait.
Yeah, so that's everything except for the boss here in Eastern Palace, but, Falcon's definitely at least got the knowledge. Knowing that you need Fire Rod to come back there does make it potentially, a double dip instead of what could have been like maybe a triple dip depending on the lamp. Shady gotta watch himself with just a single sword. These Gibdos are kind of a pain.
They're being very rude and they won't fall down the hole for him.
Yeah, the pathing not really working out to Shady Force's favor here, and actually will take a death.
And Falcon looking like they're going to hit the Village of Outcasts area, potentially Skull Woods, and get their first glimpse over here on the west side of the Dark World. And Shady going right back up, pulling out the hammer now.
Yeah, the hammer, for all intents and purposes, is basically a tempered sword in terms of damage. Not all damage classes work universally like that, but for most of them, it's like that. So this is a pretty effective weapon against Gibdos. The shadow on the floor there, though, not as easy to hit with a hammer. Gonna have to deal with the peg switches popping a few times on that spin. Shady Force does make his way through.
And we can see Falcon having that Master Sword in his trip into Skull Woods, having a bit of an easier time getting through each room, too.
Yeah, I will say that the extra health that Falcon has to work with, the extra sword, makes this a much more appealing, journey. It's much friendlier when you have at least a little more firepower to work with.
Absolutely, and though I don't believe we find anything really valuable in the front of Skull Woods. I don't know if that Wallmaster was intentional. He still has that one room to check. Probably looks like he's going to go to the right side to do it, so perhaps it was.
Well, I did see, Shady Force did decide to pick up the switch peg, earlier in the dungeon. And this is a good time to kind of be re-healing. Apparently not. That's why you do hit that peg, though.
Yeah.
Also, Falcon
Especially
still
with
needs a fire rod for the back, but, you know, is going to be able to do pretty much everything here in the front.
Once he finds that fire rod, he'll be able to hit the back of Skullwoods. Know he'll be able to kill Cold Steer over there in Eastern, and then also, provided that we don't find Bombos, make his way in Ice Palace.
Yeah, with the Titansmiths, that's on the table, isn't it?
Yep, just as soon as he gets in the Tower of Hera.
Yeah, so this fire rod seems to be a bit of a linchpin here for this seed. Several dungeons right now are really requiring it. We haven't seen a Bombos anywhere yet, but that's something else that can get us into ice, as you mentioned.
And we could also, of course, see the second Cold Stare somewhere in a dungeon where they typically wouldn't be, where the fire rod wouldn't normally be required at.
Yeah, so just a brief primer on the format for those of you strolling in late or haven't even seen any of these this week. Randomizer shuffles all of the regular enemies in the overworld. It also shuffles the bosses, so Shadyforce here about to find out a fresh experience. Turns out to be a regular Moldorm. Well, not quite regular.
Can you call it regular when it got 4 eyes, though?
I think it has 5.
Oh, sorry, that's 5. I was seeing one in his tail and thought that was just the tail. This is a 5-eyed Moldorm.
So would this Moldorm wear 2 sets of glasses and a monocle?
Yes, but I think the monocle would have to go in the center, so that the 2 glasses can go on the left and right sides. He's got to keep it uniform and somewhat symmetrical.
Thinking and thought dorm, or something like that.
Absolutely.
Definitely some...
The thinking thought dorm.
Well, that is the first boss down for the race. A vanilla, almost. Moldorm at the top of Tower Hera. That's 1 crystal for Shadyforce, half an hour in. Does have a lot of checks.
Bad time for an Randomizer.
Yeah, all things considered, this has been... We at least can get to some bosses pretty early on.
Yep. And I like this play by Shady. I like him to go through Spiral Cave first to get to the bottom, and then coming back up, do Super Bunny, presumptively. Give himself the opportunity to put that mirror portal down right there at those 2 doors for Paradox and Super Bunny, and save a little bit of time in the routing there.
And that's the best way to describe it. He's really leveraging all of his items to try and make the most out of the route. I mean, you have Mirror, you have Titan's Mitts, you have Hammer. No hook shot, but if you don't have a hook shot, this is pretty much the best way to go. So I gotta think that Falcon's not that far behind from considering a similar play. He'll go into Thieves Town. He might be able to actually do the back half. We saw a Shady nope out of Lamolis, but that might be a more appealing fight for Falcon if he can get a full heal.
Yeah, a little bit of health for him will be good. We see Ether over there in the bottom of Paradox Cave. And so if Falcon gets the heal, he has the Master Sword. That's a more appealing fight for him just from that alone. I understand that Hammer's going to hit just as hard as the spin, but the spin's going to give you a better opportunity to hit as well.
That's Kana Samaria, our first armor upgrade. We also saw a bottle for the first time out of Shadyforce, so that's a sick kid check we can do later. More bombs and a flute. This is a stacked Paradox.
East Death Mountain definitely paying dividends. And we aren't even in the Dark World side yet.
So if Paradox Cave is stacked, is it turned upside down?
No, this one will actually be turned upside right, as it's already upside down.
Okay, so it's stacked right side up now, was upside down. I'm so confused.
We've gone from being a Paradox Cave to just Stack Cave.
I'm sure there's a developer out there cringing about code. Well, I will say it's pretty awesome that we have something like this available to us to play. Randomizer originally started out as a standalone patcher that you would apply after you have already created a seed. And then just like the main Randomizer website, eventually got incorporated into the full web-based patcher, available to everybody, or at least more accessible to everybody. So this has been a long time coming. Very fun mode to play. If you are enjoying what you've been seeing so far this week, give it a shot.
And if masochism is your thing, it's wonderful.
Yeah, at least we're not shuffling the damage tables.
Yeah, that could get real bad real fast for the runners here.
Who doesn't like 64 slashes on a thief?
Me, I don't.
That's weird.
That's fair. And chat bringing up that with Pod being appended, we could see no bow this seed.
Yeah, so it's only really a hard lock requirement. Wow, I like that use of cape there from Shady. It's only a hard lock requirement for things like bow statues, which there's only one actually in Palace of Darkness. Other than that, if we don't have mimics blocking any rooms, which I think logically in Randomizer they can't, we shouldn't necessarily require it.
Yeah, any locked door has to be blocked by something that can be killable by standard weapon means, not a specific item from progression concept. So Falcon was able to take out the Land Molus and pick up the green pendant. Probably not going to head back into the left side just because it's the pendant. Probably going to take that pendant over to Sasrala and maybe even take a dip into Pod. 5 items in there. Could be a decent place to see a little bit of divergence and get something good, though might not have much good because we seem to have all the fun over here on Death Mountain.
Yeah, shadyforce leaving no stones unturned. We'll grab the 5 rubies from Spike Cave, but doesn't have to worry about it later, and that's a good natural conclusion of the mountain route. But Falcon really showing off, his Lamolus fighting, just because that's a boss that you really don't want to do with swords. Swords are just not friendly, even with spins. So despite having 1 heart to work with at the end of the fight, Falcon managed to pull it off. That is our second boss of the seed.
And interestingly enough, both runners are going to the front of escape right now. So the divergence has ended. At least for now.
The convergence.
The convergence begins.
Well, perhaps the divulgence will begin when they reveal to us what these items are.
Well said, well played.
I don't know, it's a confluence of factors that bring us to this point. At least these two have some weapons to work with. Doing this swordless is no fun.
Yeah, and shadyforce has got to feel much better about it, having the blue mail and suddenly seeing him at 10 hearts. That was relatively quick.
Yeah, Death Mountain, despite being a progressive place, very healthy place.
Yeah, and we got powder in the front of escape, which I gotta say is probably a very welcome sight for both of these runners, as anti-fairies can be pretty much anywhere, and anytime you see those, you can get that instant health refill just by popping them into a fairy.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the case in, NMG and all dungeons that the powder is basically the best safety. We see Falcon here not really considering safety, actually, setting up for a death warp off of that very convenient Hinox here in Zelda Cell's room, or the jail? The brig? Something like that.
And
gonna take the
shadyforce won't have to take that death, won't have to waste those few seconds with the game over screen, because he does have that mirror that he's already found that Falcon still is yet to go find.
Yes, that's great news for shadyforce, just to save a little bit of time. However, might end up losing that time anyway from the weirdness of that Popo there. Alright, so I believe we have logically established this is a small key here in the Dark Cross.
I was just about to say the same thing, because I'm looking at Falcon's key count at 0, and we need 1 to be able to get into the rat key to get into the back room. shadyforce, well aware of that, noped out of there. Falcon gonna see some disappointment here.
Yeah, there's a little bit of delay to that save and quit. That's one of those, oh man, that stings moments. You don't like to. That's a feeling you don't like to have.
No, not
but
at
that
all.
will. So we haven't seen the Titan's mitts yet for Falcon. Shady will be able to check King's Tomb here, grabbing a little more cash. Pretty much everything he can do over in this direction.
Yeah, Falcon seems to just be putting off the mountain, which is going to leave him without the mirror, leave him without the mitts, leave him without the flute. So he is, and without the King of Samaria. So he's putting himself in a pretty tight spot here as far as locations to continue checking, because without all those items, he's going to be basically railroaded into Death Mountain almost as the last location at the rate he's going.
I get the impression though that this tactical avoidance of the mountain really comes. Oh, geez, that's an awful menu, Shady. Really comes down to trying to have the hook shot before going up there. I think that's why Falcon's been delaying this.
Yeah, I would certainly want the hook shot just to guarantee, because right now all he knows is he can get up there and check one item in Spectacle Rock that he can grab and one item off the old man. 2 items not terribly appealing. We know that the first item he gets is going to open up literally all the others, but he doesn't have the luxury of that knowledge.
However, with the dwindling checks available to him, Falcon eventually will see the writing on the wall. Perhaps a reflection of the writing in the wall once he gets that mirror.
In fact, he may even be doing so now.
Alright, so another check being brought up in chat, actually, that shadyforce will be able to do over Falcon here, because he did pick up a bottle here in the mountain. We might actually see a sick kid check after this. We know that these magic bat check, thanks to Falcon, it's just 10 arrows. So remains to be seen where he's going to head next. But this will be a mirror for Falcon as he heads up the mountain.
And I do like that Shadyforce had to fake powder with the powder because he didn't have enough magic to powder.
Fake powder, my absolute favorite. Just to kind of give a little bit of context to what you just saw from shadyforce, fake powder is a glitch where you take advantage of the magic meter jingle, you know, where it says when you don't have magic, and when you switch to the mushroom in your menu or your powder, the game for whatever reason seems to think that you just used powder and tries to refill your magic slightly because it failed, and that gives you enough to do the powder.
And Shadyforce showing off a good piece of knowledge there, bonking that tree for the full magic that comes off of it, and now heading down into the desert area to check the ledge.
I don't recall the last time I saw a Lionel in the desert. Did they have one of those in Breath of the Wild?
They might have. I think that's where I found my first one.
Yeah, not a lot of fun. At least they're not in Hyrule Castle like they are in Breath of the Wild.
This is true. And I believe we saw Quake for Misery Maya there.
Yeah, Quake having been accessible to us very early, we do have the Cane of Samaria as well, so with the exception of the annoyance of the Vitreous fight, this is well, actually, no, it's not Vitreous, necessarily. With the exception of the possibility of an annoying fight, shadyforce can complete it. Although I think at this point, even this ice rod here in Checkerboard Cave doesn't really give shadyforce much to want to work with. That is a weapon that he could use on Lamolus, though.
Yeah, it could be really good for a Return to Thieves Town, or if we see a second Landmo. Also, we could wind up seeing 2 Trinexes here. As Trinix can't be in Mothula's arena, but I believe that's the only area that we are not... Well, Mothula and Moldor are the 2 areas where we would not be seeing Trinix today.
So if you have 2 Trinexes, does that make them Sepnex?
I think we would go with Trinix squared.
Yeah, some kind of calculus involved trying to figure out exactly how many necks we have to stick out here in order to have Hexanex. Okay, Hexnex. Hexnex sounds like a great cereal, actually. So, going to a store near you. Fire an ice flavored frost. Hexnex.
I think there might be something George R.R. Martin could do with that.
You know, I won't sing a song for you about it, but there are fire and ice heads there involved. All right. Well, speaking of fire rods.
So we had an ice rod in Checkerboard Cave and a fire rod in desert. I think the seed's trying to tell us we're not going to see Trinix today?
Either that or this is the preparedness kit. You know, making sure that you have everything you need before you go out there and try and kill them. Of course, all of the bosses will be represented in the dungeon somehow. We may or may not necessarily see certain bosses because of pendant dungeons. So Trinex is somewhere. We just don't know where yet.
Yep. If we have a Trinex in Swamp Palace or in Pod, and we don't have any reason to go to the boss, then we don't get to see him. But chances of him being in 2 locations is just as good as for any of the other bosses.
Also, we'll get to see the Moldorm fight from Falcon here. People in chat talking about the potentiality of being nearly no mode at this point. I believe shadyforce does know how to hover. I think I've seen him do it in a race before. If not, then he's just looking for a hook shot and a sword. We know that there's one on Zora. And then Falcon has quite a few items to gather, but most of them here in the mountain.
Yeah, Falcon will be in basically the same situation in short order, provided that once he gets the flute, he decides to make that same Mire area play, which is typically pretty common to see, so it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Hearing an update that neither of our runners apparently know how to hover, so this will not be a hover seed.
I'm okay with that.
All right, well, I love to see it though. The team representation, everybody on their teams cheering on their teammates. shadyforce with that newly acquired fire rod, almost mirroring out. He does not have the magic he needs to do this.
Yeah, having the fire up but not having Bombos is going to have to nope out of there for now. And that is our second cold stare, because we had one in Eastern Palace as well.
Yes, for those of you keeping count at home, that is the first repeat boss that we've seen of this Randomizer seed. We'll see if shadyforce opts to head right back there, or if he tries to... Well, I guess he could have finished a boss for the magic refill, opted to go to potion shop instead since we had the flute.
And having Quake, he can complete Mire, in theory. Actually, yeah, he can complete Mire because we have everything we need for every boss at this point, except for Argus. So if we have Argus in Mire, then the hook shot's going to be required for that. But other than that, he can kill the Mire boss as well, so may as well come back in and grab both crystals here.
Yeah, this is a pretty convenient pairing for shadyforce here, as that will put him up to 3 crystals while Falcon's still working on finding those items here on the mountain. This is kind of an important moment for Falcon, because what he does next after this will determine how far behind or potentially ahead he could get. If he finds a hook shot somewhere that Shady isn't looking, this could really turn around quick.
Certainly could. And to answer a question in chat, we actually have not seen a cold stare killed yet, because in Eastern Palace we did not have either of the fire sources required to take his shell off, and we just saw shadyforce pop out for the desert one because of a lack of magic.
Alrighty, well, some decently friendly enough enemies here for the back half of Desert, as Falcon picks up the loaded cave, getting his Canis Samaria. Our tracker's so fast I didn't even catch all of it. There was a flute there, I think.
It was a flute, yep.
And blue mail, so it's a little safer now for these two. Now they at least have one to work with. shadyforce going to opt to do a sword spin to get them all in the corner, and switching to fire rod for magicless shots, I guess. I actually really like the decision to use the blue potion right away, just to try and get some of these shots done, because it's a lot easier to finish off cold stare when you only have a couple of hammer hits, as opposed to trying to balance all 3 of them for longer.
I think the intention with the blue potion was to hit it and then get the fire rod shot that would guarantee hitting all 3 in the corner with the splash damage. Unfortunately, picking the fire rod first didn't give him that opportunity.
Oh geez, he is 1 hammer strike away.
There we go. Close one, but finished fight, giving him that Desert Palace crystal and nothing but a compass.
Alright, well, with the knowledge for Falcon here that Ether is the Turtle Rock requirement, we're not going to need any other medallions at this point now. We know where that fire rod's at, so Bombos not even part of the equation at this point. Would be nice to find anyway.
Yeah, Bombos could be critical just for getting through the gauntlet in Ganda's Tower, based on what enemies decide they feel like hanging out up there. Falcon trying to dance around this and does so, as opposed to using the cape strat that we saw out of shadyforce.
Yeah, so we'll save a little bit of magic. Probably not in the grand scheme of things the most important thing, but the interesting part about that is he saves and quits, so he will get some health refill and doesn't have to worry about refilling his magic as it will preserve through it.
And fortunately for him, the Spike Cave skip will save him some time, as all we saw was rupees out of there when shadyforce went in.
Now, this part I'm a little bit confused. Well, no, this is expected. You're checking King's Tomb before you go to activate the flute. We saw this from Shady as well.
Yep.
Alright, I really like this use of Ether here in Mire 2. We'll not be able to get everything with it as one of the... Actually, I don't even know the name of those. I think they're P-hats or something like that. One of these guys, these two of them actually weren't completely emerged from the ground just yet.
And we still have the shadow creature there as well. So, making decent work of it though, especially where he just still only has the fighter sword. And to answer the question in chat, the only areas that Trinex cannot be is Mothula's arena and Moldorm's area.
Okay, they're called levers. I figured it out.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point to bring up. There are some bosses that really can't be in certain arenas. What that is about is just because of the nature of the way these rooms load. They're on what we call super tiles. So those are collections of rooms that load all at once. Some of the boss rooms are their own super tile, a big, huge room, compared to like one square-shaped room. And the difference being that certain bosses' AI don't work properly within those spaces. Some of them don't even work very well anyway, but at least they function, so they're allowed. I'll pull up the list of the actual ones.
Yeah, my favorite of the slightly not great as far as mechanics go has to be Armos in the Mothula room, where they can clip in and out of the room.
Yeah, there's even a few places where, like a kill room, like Landmolus 2 room in GT, sometimes you can actually open the door without even killing them all.
Yes, particularly if you have an Argus there, where if you jump up into the ceiling and the game registers him off screen as dead, so the door opens and you've only done half the boss.
Yeah, so that's something to point out. Kill rooms, they actually only function by looking at whether or not an enemy's on screen, like in the camera. That's part of why the whole, camera manipulation glitch works, potion unlock. And it potentially has some implications here in Randomizer. So just to update on, for those wondering which bosses can be where, we do know that... oh, actually, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Give me just a second here.
And our tracker pointing out one of my other favorites there, Helmicopter is always fun. Helmosaur sitting in Mothula's room.
That's always hilarious.
Essentially, Mothula's room just makes things fun, except for Mothula.
Alright, so now I finally have the information I was trying to give you. Cold Stare, Vitreous, Moldorm, Helmosaur, and Mothula are the 5 bosses that can appear in a Moldorm arena. That includes Moldorm 1 and Moldorm 2 in GT. You cannot find Trinex in Mothula's arena, and Blind cannot be in Landmolus 2.
So that leaves plenty of areas for our double bosses to be, and with the fact that 2 of our pendant dungeons are pretty much the anybody can be here places, it does limit us a little bit in who we might see.
Yeah, we have not had an opportunity to see the back of Misery Mire yet, and shadyforce kind of doing the long haul here, because this is one of those things you don't want to have to repeat, as it's very slow and arduous to get through all this, and the Randomizer makes this dungeon even worse.
Absolutely, and looking over here, seeing where Falcon is, he is catching up relatively quickly with having that Master Sword to clear through the rooms a bit faster than that Fighter Sword.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that shouldn't be understated. Just the sword difference alone makes Randomizer easier to deal with. I mean, the boss kills themselves, that's one thing. You know, Fighter Sword, not a lot of fun to deal with, but Master Sword for some of these Dark World enemies, that's a bow for Shady Force. That'll make Vitreous a little easier to contend with Fighter Sword.
And also worth noting that if we do wind up finding another sword and Shady Force is able to get up to Master Sword, if Falcon stays on the same route, we'll see that same discrepancy even on a greater scale with going from Master Sword to Tempered.
I just realized I assumed Vitreous is here.
I always assume it's the base one until I see that it's not.
But yeah, you got a great point, Penguin, about, you know, just how much more magnified it'll be until Shady Force makes a decision to either, you know, go check Zora or stumbles across another sword. This will be a disadvantage, and in all likelihood, Falcon will pick up any sword that Shady Force picks up in his path.
Falcon wisely filling his magic just in case he has a boss in here that he needs it for. Doesn't know he does, is going to be very glad he did.
Alright, well, this is a cold stare fight for Falcon, in good position to get some hammer hits in. Is not going to be using any sort of potion for magic, so this is a raw, like, hammer strat fight. We'll see if he can pull it off. His Master Sword slash is pretty good for spacing. Smart use of the sword here.
Yeah. Unlike Shady Force, I don't believe that Falcon did any additional potion to grabbing, so I believe he only has that red one, which will come in handy here if he continues to take a couple more hits.
That's an R guy here in the back of of Misery Mire, as we see that potion usage from Falcon here.
So we do know that the hook shot is required for the seed, so once we have hook, we are in go mode.
Yeah, so Shady Force, without having any other options, we'll consider the other cold stare on the menu. Shady Force going to head over to Palace of Darkness first, but has Eastern completable behind that. So this is a pendant dungeon he's jumping into, looking for this hook shot, and potentially another sword. I think he wants another sword soon.
And I like the play here because you get 5 items out of here. Ice Palace could potentially hold the hook shot, but where the certain sections of Ice Palace could also be hook shot locked, the likelihood of it being there, not terribly high. And I don't actually think we've seen Shady hit Sahasrahla at all either.
Yeah, this is his first time through the area, doesn't have the green pendant like Falcon does. So actually, I think it's fairly likely that Falcon follows this route as well, heading towards Palace of Darkness to check, and then Eastern, you know, to finish. We'll have everything he needs to do that. Except, depends on whether or not he hits Misery Mire first. If he hits Misery Mire first, he'll have a bow for the statue in Palace of Darkness. Can at least get down to whatever boss fight that is.
And you gotta figure he has the cane, he has boots, he can get into the mire itself. No reason not to at least take the dip. Hope you have the item for the boss. You have a 1 in 10 chance at this point that the boss isn't going to be the one you can kill. So mire makes sense for the play.
All right, well, as you mentioned before, the gap slowly closing here. Falcon taking advantage, or best advantage, of the sword that he has over Shady Force. Shady Force, I don't think he hasn't been over here to Eastern at all, so he'll be checking this first to try and get the crystal, and will be able to get the crystal in the first pass.
Well, that's going to depend on his magic situation again. I don't believe he has another potion at all, and we know Cold Stare is our boss here in Eastern Palace as well.
That's a great point. I didn't think about it, because, I mean, we may very well see Shady Force use, like, Cape or something like that here in this dungeon. Let alone Fire Rod.
Yeah, he's also been very liberal with using the medallions to clear out the rooms easier, and here he is getting hit with anti-fairies, and that could prove costly.
Yeah, there are a couple of opportunities to get magic refills in this dungeon. The Stalfos room to the west of here is the most likely, but you're kind of hoping for drops too. It's only one small magic decanter in there. I think there might be others around, but most of the dungeon's arrows.
Yeah, the thing too is that muscle memory of you're in Eastern Palace, you're typically thinking bow and arrow, you're not really thinking magic. Do you go and make that play to grab something that's going to be out of your typical norm?
Yeah, this is a interesting set of circumstances, as both of our runners now have 13 hearts to work with blue mail. We're a little safer than we were when we started. We're not that powerful yet.
Yeah, right about here is where I would start to feel comfortable beginning an Randomizer seat.
Yeah, I'd agree to that. Reasons I'm glad I'm not racing for my team this week. Alright, well, Shady's not killing anything here, and he really needs to try and find a small magic decanter.
Yeah, looking less and less likely with each room he passes through that he's going to give that a thought.
Well, this is going to be really big news for Falcon, as this double dip may be exactly what he needs in order, or exactly what Falcon needs for Shady Force to give up some of this apparent lead that he has. At this point, we're even on crystals, and Falcon not that far behind from coming back to this area.
Especially where when he does, he's already cleared everything else out in Eastern. He just has to go to the boss.
And on top of that, knows what kind of boss he's dealing with. We'll see that fire rod usage from Shady Force despite having the lamp.
And once again, popping that ether.
Alright, so he could potentially get a magic drop from these, though. He's going to use a hammer, which traditionally, if you use that on a frozen enemy, would be your best bet. Does not end up getting a full magic refill.
We did see him kill a Hinox earlier with the hammer, and there was a magic decanter drop off of him. When he was frozen.
Well, that's tough. I don't know if any other prize packs will work out to his benefit like that. There would be potential for trying to farm some of that magic in the back half here with some of these enemies, but this is a tough break for Shady Force.
And we are once again in the room with that creepy head-only mini Moldor.
He's just got his feet underneath him, you know? He's just, trying to stand vertically.
So you're saying he's trying to bounce on his tail like Tigger?
Yes. Yes, absolutely that.
That makes him even worse.
Look at that bounce. I will say, though, that Falcon, when he went through here, had a much, much nicer room before Armos. I'm sorry,
Yes.
before Cold Start. Oh, we're gonna see a,
This is bro. Oh, no, never mind.
He was trying to do the same thing as a sword beam strat. You can do it with arrows as well. That's super niche knowledge. Shady Force is a little shy on magic to do it, but you can do it with half a magic meter. He needed full health to get sword beams with another sword upgrade, and we would have seen that from Shady Force there. I was so hyped for something that didn't happen, man.
I enjoy the fact that he went for it, but I think just that little bit too little magic, knowing he only had 3 shots with the fire rod. If he had that 4th, probably would have been able to get that shell off.
Yeah, it's a really difficult strat, but major props to Shady Force for going for it. That's unexpected.
Now gonna go, presumably, get the item off of the island, and then hit Ice Palace in hopes to get himself his hook shot.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, this was a blue potion that we had here on the Lake Hylia Island.
I believe you are correct.
There is also an anti-fairy here, so yikes, you gotta watch out for that.
So now with the blue goo, this actually be a good time after he finishes Ice Palace to clean up the Zora area as well. Might wind up coming out of here and getting that Master Sword finally.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's a best case scenario for Shady Force here, as having left empty from Eastern Palace and really not getting much from it. Falcon has more of the world that seems sensible for him to check. Wouldn't be surprised to see Falcon head here, head to Eastern, Palace of Darkness. I mean, even Swamp Palace is doable. I mean, you don't have the hook shot for the back half, but it's a pendant.
And realistically, how many times have we seen Hookshot hanging out in this vanilla dungeon?
Too many for my sanity.
Absolutely. So Could be a good play. I mean, you get it in the front, you know you don't have to deal with the back. Off you go. But he also does have that knowledge of he will need the full magic to get through Cold Stare and might see Pod and Eastern as the combo play.
Well, there's the Argus of disappointment for Falcon here. Shady Force visiting Disney's most recent promotion. Hinox is on ice. We'll see if the Lionel's on ice are nicer to him. Oh my goodness.
And chat bringing up a good point. Are we going to see the Icebreaker out of Shady? Looking like no.
That's kind of surprising. I know he knows how to do it. And it looked like he was contemplating it for a moment there, but maybe just the... Oh, he's going to hit the switch first. That's awesome. Okay, so we will see Icebreaker. So to explain what we're about to see here, this is something that's newly race legal, according to the Racing Council. Basically, what we're trying to do is clip ourselves 1 pixel into this barrier and take advantage of Link's door state. Wow, that was really smooth. Bufferless, too. To clip through the railing there by displacing ourselves with that King of Samaria block. The door state stuff, basically, when you're entering and exiting doors, the game doesn't want to let you collide with things, because then you could get stuck. So we abuse that to try and get through that barrier. Well, potion time for Falcon as we see more of Ice Palace from Shady Force. Looks like Falcon's gearing up for maybe that Cold Stare fight.
It would certainly make sense. Oh, opting instead looks for ice.
This is a pretty sensible decision as well for picking up that potion. You never know what you're going to need in here. You know that you're at least going to have to kill some Freezors.
You know you have the Freezors, and interestingly enough, you know you don't have Cold Stare.
Yeah, we have established that now that we've seen 2 of them. I think a Mothula fight here would be pretty funny.
Yeah, it would. Mothula on ice is always fun.
Looking like Shady Force not going to waste any time heading straight to the boss here. So this is a 5/6 crystal as well. But I don't know if he found all of the items here. He doesn't have a hook shot. So maybe he's just trying to avoid doing unnecessary sequence breaking.
Yeah, that's a good possibility because he did. Just based off the fact that when he was in Escape, he noticed and noped out before going into Dark Cross to get the key, despite setting up to go do so. Probably keeping count of where he found what he found, and knowing that the hookshot can't be over there, and that's the only item keeping him from go mode, opting to just go for the boss.
Yeah, so the logical exclusion, that's a good point. He is down to 1 heart, popping 7 arrows into Helmasaur's face, having no problems finishing up, despite how scary that just looked.
Now, the only interesting thing to note with Ice Palace, though, is were we hookshot locked for the boss? Because with the Icebreaker play, I don't know.
Yeah, we are missing some information to give us more context for the key logic. We have only seen the front chest as far as the first half of the dungeon goes. Everything else having been skipped with Icebreaker. So because we see Falcon here going for it as well, I don't think we're ever going to really find out until we figure out where that hookshot's at.
Next, I believe the logic in Ice Palace is that if you don't see a small key in the chest at the front or the chest above the big key room, it becomes hookshot locked.
That sounds vaguely familiar and correct to me.
We see Falcon setting up for the Icebreaker. Let's see if it's as clean as we saw from Shady Force.
He's got the setup. Looks like he's in a good spot. He needs to hold left 1 frame and then up or down. Unfortunately, holding left for too long there.
It looks like magic becoming a concern there, opting not to blue potion there, and maybe he's going to do the traditional bomb jump route through the rest of Ice Palace here.
Yeah, these Lionel's not going to make it easy. I think at this point, Falcon may have wished that he actually used that blue potion, as he may end up doing so anyway, but does have powder to work with, so there is some safety still accessible to him. We'll probably use it here. The blue potion, that's totally what I meant to say.
Yes. Yes, it was.
And the powder.
So looking like Shady Force taking that fire rod, gonna go ahead and clear out the back of Skull Woods now. Give us a first look at the boss that's in there. Doesn't have the book, so won't give us a pedestal check. Even if he did, we know that there's not going to be anything of consequence on there, as Swamp Palace being one of our crystals, the only item we need being Hookshot, that thing's dead. So I'm sorry, Swamp Palace being one of our pendants.
Yeah, so one last thing on the table to consider, and so we probably won't see Shady Force mirroring after this dungeon for the sake of the pedestal, maybe for a fluke, but we will see. Oh, jeez, that's an annoying, annoying spike. It feels like a bad omen when you're walking into the back half and you got a spike that blocks your progress completely.
Yeah, when you hear the clicks that quickly, that's never fun.
We had a very regular Gibdo Mummy Hellway. Shady Force with enough magic to work with from here on should be in good shape as long as it's not like Trinex back there, but I think he does have a blue potion.
He did go back and hang out with the witches for a couple moments, so I believe he did pick up another blue. Oh, we get the Armos fight. This will be fun.
Not exactly a fun place to find them. They do some weird things with the conveyors. Alright, well, they're spinning, the floor is spinning, the room is spinning, at least the spikes aren't moving.
So we've had one teleport up through the top, so any damage done to him should now be reset. And Shady running out of arrows now has to just rely on fighter sword slashes.
Which is a perfectly good enough, way to fight him. I think you can knock him into the spikes, it looks like he's doing some damage with that.
I believe there is some spike damage, but Armos is one of those weird damage table bosses that I never quite fully understood. And that was a really good Armos fight for being in a Mothula room.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really wants to fight Armos like that, with depleted arrows, fighter sword, but Shady Force making it look a lot easier than it is. That conveyor floor alone makes it a nightmare to deal with a sword slash.
Alright, so we're seeing him flute out. Where is he going to go now? Looks like now making the option over to Pod. Maybe go clean up Eastern first, knowing that he needs to keep a full magic bar for Cold Stare.
Yeah, it's going to end up being a very smart decision for him. Shady Force with 4 crystals to Falcon's 2 currently. Now, Falcon should be able to do the Ice Palace boss here, all things considered. So we'll be 4 to 3 here shortly, but Shady Force might actually be able to finish this Cold Stare first.
And interestingly enough, not opting to go through the Dark World to set up a mirror to go to Eastern, so Pod might not even be on his mind for afterward. There is the possibility that Turtle Rock holds our hookshot.
It's a rude possibility, but a possibility nonetheless.
Rude for sure, but we typically always see at least one progression item in the dungeon you never want to go in.
Alrighty, a bit of a jamboree here in Falcon's Freezor room. That did not look a lot of fun. Lionel plus Beamos, even worse.
This is a bad iced tea room.
So who's the iced tea here? The Beamos to the Lionel?
Falcon.
Cooler than cool, ice cold, if you will. A completely different reference, but Falcon gonna have to save and continue, and we'll end up continuing on into the rest of Ice Palace with a depleted magic meter halfway. This is going to be potentially precarious.
And most likely going to wind up using the cape in that room just to get to the chest when he gets back. So the good thing for him is the magic decanters that are in there right before the Cold Stare room are static, so he can always go in there to refill.
I'm a little concerned for Shady right now.
I was going to say I'm shocked he hasn't pulled out Ether, but it's a very good thing he hasn't, because we know he has Cold Stare, and so does he.
Alright, has everything he needs, just needs to not waste any fire rod shots. Getting hecked a little bit by the ice there, but does have Cold Stare in the corner. Should be able to get some good hammer hits in on most of them, and as long as he doesn't take a ton of damage, should be okay here.
Yeah, he definitely got a couple good multi-hits there right when they got in there. Probably just a couple more left on each head. Clean fight. Pretty much as clean as his Armos was on the Mothula. And
Just a
rewarded with a
single
single arrow.
I don't know if this is the gameplay and tricks on our runners, but that's not something you want to see.
No, that's not the single pointy-tipped item they want today.
Yeah, shadyforce still hasn't made his way over to the Zora area. Has every reason not to, since we're only looking for a hook shot and another sword. If he makes his way over to Zora, though, it becomes hook shot mode for him.
So, even if he doesn't go to Zora, it would not surprise me at all to see him ignore the idea that he only has a fighter sword, because GT holding literally about 12% of our items in the game is probably going to have a sword form.
Yeah, pretty high likelihood overall. So, yeah, it's a safe play to not worry about it until later, really.
I was one race earlier this week, someone went into GT with a fighter sword, opted to skip some of the basement because they just felt like, you know, they'd probably find one up top, and found one in the room right before Moldorm. Mothula 2. No, Moldorm 2. Mothula was there, I think.
Also, yeah, Mothula. Well, it could have been Mothula too.
Yeah, I think it might have been in that case, but it was the chest right before the Moldorm 2 room. They finally got their Master Sword.
I like to call that one the last gas station before Ganon.
That's fair.
Holy rollers! Shadyforce having the most extreme 3-peg puzzle I've ever seen. This is totally depressing.
This puzzle is typically free. Right now it is not.
Finally, the folks out there who are mad enough to consider Turtle Rock Peg Shuffle, their diabolical dreams coming true with that one.
Falcon filling up on health there through use of the powder. Probably thought he'd keep his full magic, but the anti-fairy decided that wasn't going to be the case for him. It'll be interesting to see if he just decides to dive in without having full magic, or if he... Nope, looks like he's just going in.
Alright, so Falcon has just 17 hammer smacks to the face of Helmasaur King here. A very pink-looking Helmasaur King, which is actually a pretty nice shade, I think, for the boss.
Yeah, the pink and green Helmasaur never looks bad.
I'll say it does a little bit better with the palettes than a lot of other bosses out there.
And he's probably feeling very fortunate that he did not see a Trinex in here, because only having Master Sword and a hammer, not having a full magic, could potentially have been another situation where he'd had to nope out of the boss.
So we've seen some folks asking in chat, what was in the iced tea room? Well, we did see a Beamos and a Lionel, but as for the item, we will probably never know. Both of these runners have had to skip it.
Yeah, we had a locked chest that no one wants to go near.
Now, I do believe we've established that it won't be the hook shot at this point.
Yeah, I think that item was technically hookshot locked.
Yo, I really like this decision from Falcon to go buy some extra arrows. We have not seen a Vitreous yet, and pretty soon I gotta think it's gonna happen. If you have lots of... Oh, there's our cannon guard. If you have lots of arrows to work with, Vitreous becomes a much more palatable fight, even if you don't have a good sword.
Surprising me that they didn't just pick up the bombs as well while he was there, being only at 6.
Yeah, that would net you a full refill, even if you didn't need the extra bombs.
And the most friendly of chain chomp rooms, and the fact that there aren't chain chomps in it.
Yeah, this dungeon kind of being known as having, a hallmark of all kinds of different Mario enemies in it, really not living up to its reputation at this point. There's a fire bar. This could sort of be like Bowser's Castle, maybe.
I think this is no in the Randomizer mode. I think this is the Mario Maker version of Turtle Rock.
That's great. Pen gators, anti-fairies, fire bars, a very strange sequence here for Shadyforce, but he is able to get through pretty much everything so far, even though he only has a fire sword at his disposal for a primary weapon. We'll end up checking the lava chest here, and looking like a full clear of Turtle Rock looking for that hook shot.
And even if it wasn't just the hookshot, I think he'd still give the full clear just because he's here. There's not a lot of time saved going go mode in Turtle Rock, and he still is on Fighter Sword.
So those are some things that we might end up seeing on Laser Bridge. A hookshot, a sword upgrade, those will all be really good for Shadyforce. If neither of those things are there, then Falcon here has some opportunity to save some time back off of Shadyforce. We'll be able to finish this Skull Woods. And then likely we'll end up dovetailing Misery Mire into Eastern Palace into Turtle Rock.
Well, he does still have to get the hookshot for Misery Mire, so if we do find that here in Turtle Rock, he's going to have to Eastern Turtle Rock, then Misery Mire.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
And he might make the decision to hit one of the 2 pendant dungeons instead.
Which, for all we know, might end up being the choice.
Absolutely. I mean, how many times do we see the meme of Pendant Pod as a value location?
It's like every time.
I mean, every seed I have, I know if I see Pendant Pod, ooh, we got a Master Sword over there for Shadyforce. So we have a sword in the Mimic Room Cave.
We assume it's a Mimic Cave, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to name it something different, but not working because there's usually mimics in there.
The railless cave, because normally it has rails.
That's fair.
So this is kind of interesting.
Now is strictly on a hookshot hunt.
And I wonder if Falcon's going to pick up that sword, because, if we end up finding that hookshot somewhere else outside of Turtle Rock, there's a decent chance Falcon will not be checking something like Mimic Cave.
Yeah, I couldn't see him checking the Mimic Cave at that point. I mean, Hookshot Cave, maybe, because you're running by it to get to GT and there's 3 checks in there. But the couple of mirror transitions it's going to take to potentially get the one item that may or may not be Silver's or Sword, probably not worth the time. Speaking of Sword.
There it is. Alright, so Mimic Cave irrelevant to Falcon at this point.
So interestingly enough, we now know that Shadyforce will have Master Sword through the rest, provided he does not go to Zora. Because we now know where all 4 swords are.
Yeah, and it's pretty unfathomable to expect him to go back into Skull Woods to check that location, of anything.
Yeah, I mean, where he's already finished Skull Woods. It actually surprised me he didn't go back in to check that when he did.
Oh, did Shadyforce just take a death with... Oh, no.
He took it from the big chest room, at least.
Yeah, that is at least a little bit of reassurance, but I mean, that's a painful death to take. That's like good 6 room transitions, a dark maze. That's painful. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised, as you mentioned, unless Shadyforce's last locationing this hookshot, we'll probably not end up finding that 3rd sword. We'll find out here with the laser bridge. He did 1 skip already, and does have his key. So it looked like he was setting up to continue. If he has enough health at the end of this dark maze, he should be able to get the safety door at least.
Yep, so Shady is missing Zora Sword and Skullwood Sword, where Falcon is just missing the Mimic Cave Sword.
Alright, Shady gonna actually use his cape. I think he has that blue potion still, so that is an option if he ends up needing it for the boss. Has to watch out here. These lasers still will kill him at this point.
Won't be surprised if we see him use the safety door here real quick. Opting instead for the refill and go.
That's an interesting choice. Maybe trying to preserve that door just in case, he sees a boss he doesn't like and then has a more convenient portal to save. I'm really
Could
not
be.
sure why he doesn't take the safety door there.
Yeah, and you could be right. You go out of the big key area and you just pop your mirror over to where Spiral Cave typically is. You have an easy way to jump down and get in there. But you also have the same with the other spot. And we have another Argus in Turtle Rock. So Turtle Rock and Misery Mire both requiring the hook shot.
That is super not good for shadyforce because despite getting the sword, which is great, came out completely empty from Turtle Rock and will probably almost certainly not have a portal to save.
And now opting to take the pod route. What'll be interesting, with the fact that Falcon's already completed Thieves Town, in the sense that he's gotten the green pendant and beaten the boss, he has less incentive to go to the left side. Neither one of the runners have gotten there. There could be a hookshot hanging out in the attic or in the big chest in Thieves Town.
Yeah, that is a stone left unturned so far, so we'll end up finding out in a little bit if that ends up being the separating point between these two. Right now, it looks like Falcon's heading up to Turtle Rock, which is really good for Shady, having spent that time. This is probably the worst case scenario for Falcon right now, but at least he has a better sword to work with.
Yeah, worst case scenario, but absolutely the best case scenario for him, item density wise, with the value of being in a dungeon that's going to potentially give him a crystal if he can finish it. He's going to get that same rude reality that Shady did, where hookshot is going to be required in here, but till he knows that, this is a perfectly logical play.
Yeah, I certainly don't fault them for making this decision. As you mentioned, item density is amazing, particularly when you're only looking for like one item. At this point, Falcon really only needs that hookshot. He's pretty well equipped otherwise.
Yeah, silvers would be a great luxury to get just for the time save on Ganon, but the gold sword, he's not going to save too much there. I'm sure with the caliber of runner he is, he can probably get that one cycle with the temperate on phase 1 and 2 as well.
Yeah, so Ganon fight not a huge consideration at this point for the two runners. Really just want to deal with these Arguses. These Argai?
Oh, for sure.
Are they Argai?
Argai.
If it's not the
I would go with
buffs?
Argai. If Radius is Radii, then Argus is Argai.
Fair enough, fair enough. Because I'm always thinking of like the puffs when I say that. Alright, that is Turtle Rock entry for Falcon, as shadyforce shows us for the first time Palace of Darkness, a pendant dungeon. It has everything he needs to do this logically, so despite these guards not being that effective, we'll be dashing through here pretty quickly.
In the room that should normally be bow-locked, but instead we just slash a couple of these guards out with the sword, and boom, doors open and we're ready to roll.
I mean, we're still using pointy things.
Yeah, they may not be made of wood or silver, but they count.
Alright, some rudeness going on here in this check while we see Falcon getting his big key for Turtle Rock, soon to uncover... well, I have to imagine he's going to get that gold sword now that he doesn't have the hookshot coming in here.
Yeah,
so
you gotta
we'll
check
have-
Mimic Cave if you don't have it, because that could be the one item you need and the one spot you need to check.
So we'll have a two-sword disparity, but at the same time, we're looking at even crystal counts, and the same crystals at that. The one advantage Falcon has over Shady here in terms of... Ooh, that's nice. The,
Good use of the new tech there.
do you know how to explain that, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, because I tried doing it and noped out of it.
Fair enough. Well, basically, all you really need to know as a viewer for that particular trick is that the Canis Mario is very broken. When you place it down, the game doesn't like you doing stuff with stairs and pits. By dashing and dash turning north into that staircase when you have a Canis Mario on screen, the block on screen, for whatever reason, Link dashes for longer in the animation than expected, so you can actually get past those pegs when you're not supposed to. It saves like 7 seconds or so. That's our hook shot.
So hookshot in the dark area of Pod, putting shadyforce and go mode in the 128th minute. So going back to the clip there, though, you mentioned he has to do a turn during the dash. So is that the part of the trick? You start dashing right and turn left and turn up, or left and turn up?
Basically, like, you need to be sliding off the ledge. Like, it's kind of the same way the water walk works in that sense. Like, it has something to do with the actual state of being nearly falling. And then dash turning allows you to preserve that position while dashing north. Normally, you can't just walk into that position facing up.
And chat pointing out that it is not the 128th minute, as it's just an hour and 28, so that would be the 88th minute. I'm clearly not a soccer watcher.
Fair enough. Or football, as the rest of the world probably calls it.
For sure.
We're at least establishing our North American presence here.
Yes. Now, the interesting thing here is Shadyforce definitely having a clear advantage being in actual go mode. Only, though, if Falcon does not make Pod his next stop, which, realistically, I don't see why he wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't think you really want to go into Swamp Palace next. We know Misery Miner's not completable. Turtle Rock will be noped out of. So, I mean, it's really the only smart play for Falcon to make next. Although there are potentially other locations, mirror-locked spots. You could do Overworld instead. I just don't think it's strong.
Yeah. He's already hit King's Tomb and Bonk Rocks, so Graveyard Ledge and Catfish should be isolated on their own. I don't think either of them gave us much out of the Smith Chain at all.
Yeah, neither of them have even looked at it.
So that could be something he goes for. But I don't know. With how much dungeon diving both of them have been doing to this point, it would be surprising to me to see him suddenly make a shift over to Overworld. He is going to grab his gold sword here, though.
Yeah, and this is a really long seed, too. I mean, Randomizer tends to be a bit longer just for the simple fact that you're going to have to double dip some things, but, I got to think that you don't want to do the relatively easy things if you know that, you're just looking for one item and the density is going to get you to it faster.
Oh, for sure. And we saw some spooky action out of Shadyforce there. Got hit with the Bunny Beam, had to go up and do the last one in the normal format. Now we're going to take a look at our Argus, and he's going to realize that we actually have a hookshot this time, and he's pretty much done.
Yeah, so this was Shadyforce's moment of truth. Now that he, has that hookshot, he can kill the two remaining bosses that are standing in his way. And it's just Misery Miner and Turtle Rock. Both Arguses, all he has to worry about. With just Master Sword, these would be slower fights. So you're going to see him try to go for the double grabs here, which is definitely going to speed things up a bit. Will it be enough to keep Falcon off of his tail? As long as Falcon goes to Palace of Darkness next, that question's still up in the air.
Yeah, I think if Falcon hits Palace of Darkness next, this ultimately becomes a execution with Master Sword versus Gold Sword, and of course, the ever so fun GT routing decisions.
Yeah, I will say that a 2-sword deficit, even though it's Master Sword versus Gold Sword, that is pretty significant. The jump from Master Sword to Tempered Sword alone is huge. And then Gold Sword just makes more bosses fast killable. So we will see some bosses in GT, at least 2 of them. Whether or not the Gold Sword's a factor there, yet to be seen.
Now, interestingly enough, Falcon is taking the safety door. I wonder if by doing so, actually, by having to go to Pod, he wouldn't be able to... No, they haven't killed Aga, so he would technically still be able to preserve his portal if he decides to go back to Turtle Rock first once he finds his hookshot.
I'm trying to remember. I think you have to save and continue in order to do that, but I don't know if that's going to be preserved if you go through a portal on the East Dark World.
And I think ultimately what I believe he would have to do is die, save, go back up through the east side using the hookshot to then get to the drop.
Now, that would actually save a really healthy chunk of time over Shadyforce, but at this point, we're seeing Falcon basically getting to the boss as Shadyforce is on his way back up to Turtle Rock. This may not be enough, even if he does pull off the successful portal preservation.
Yep. Falcon getting that unfortunate news, going to nope out of here as well.
I think Falcon's considering the possibilities here of this portal preservation, and I think he may end up attempting it now that he realizes that, you know, it's just the hook shot.
And Zelda in chat pointing out that he can still preserve the portal after doing Misery Mire as well. So it would be a time sink for him to do the dying portion of it, but it might be on his mind. Fortunately, this looks like he might be doing a Swamp Palace play, or unless he hasn't checked Pyramid Ledge, thinking Pyramid into Pod.
Oh. Yeah, this might work out better then. Well, fans of Falcon are going to be happy to see that.
To answer the question in chat, the hook shot was in Pod, down in the anti-fairy room.
Alrighty, there's a pyramid check for Falcon, a vanilla piece of heart. Not going to stop for that at 13 total.
Now, does he go to Catfish or does he go to Pod? Oh, Catfish.
And while this is a bit of a time sink, it's not the most awful. It's just all of this is time that he can't afford to give to Shadyforce here.
The only thing that really could help him with this is if he's going to get his silvers off of Catfish.
Yeah, that would be pretty big, actually. That would be a nice, hefty... It would basically erase the time it took to get to Catfish, but it would also potentially save some time in GT.
And it would also guarantee that Shady's doing 52 spins to kill Ganon.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Alrighty, Catfish, potential for bailing him out today. What will it be?
There's arrows, but not silver ones.
That is so close to being useful.
I'd say I'm surprised he didn't pick him up where he is down in arrow, but not really.
Yeah, we do still have the, I guess the likelihood. I mean, we haven't seen Swamp Palace's boss, or Palace of Darkness's boss, so there's still a chance that that Vitreous is on one of those. Without having, you know, silver arrows for Shadyforce, there would be a reason to, you know, care about whether or not you have silvers for that. Falcon, might want the ammunition in case he finds them in GT.
Yeah, the finding of silvers in GT would help Shadyforce much more than Falcon, which, from Falcon's perspective, he doesn't know it, but he's hoping they're not in there.
Well, this fight going a lot smoother for Shadyforce than the first one. Getting a pretty effective, looked like 2-cycle for the first phase, and setting up for a fast kill.
And unfortunately, Sahasrahla only paying out $20 for his green pendant.
Yeah, that's extra rough for the time spent in Thieves Town. Alright, well that's bad news for Falcon because that erases his portal.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. To answer the question in the chat, we have seen 2 Cold Stares, and we've seen 2 Arguses, so there's one other refight out there.
For all we know, it might be Palace of Darkness or Swamp Palace. It could be in GT. We'll find out and we'll know. I think by the time we've done all the bosses... oh, we forgot to play our game.
We forgot the guessing game. The bot is starting, so go ahead and get your GT best big key guessing game guesses in. It's numbers 1 through 22. We will turn the bot off as soon as Shadyforce gets down whichever staircase he chooses to go down, so that you get a little bit of time.
Alright, it wasn't a lot of time, but 19 of you managed to get your guesses in, as our cannon guard blocks no big key here in the Hope Room. The first 2 chests coming up empty, besides one small key. Yikes, man. That's the first time in a while I've been like, oh, geez, we're already there.
Yeah, well, that's something Randomizer will do to you, though. You have so much stuff you got to pay attention to, and sometimes the little things slip.
Let alone a wall master on the left side of GT. This is going to be kind of fun for shadyforce, I have to imagine. By fun, I mean less friendly F words, I'm sure.
You mean fun for us. So that was in chest number 4.
Yeah, the very fourth chest of the dungeon. Gonna check for extra items here, hoping to maybe find silvers or something. Shadyforce will not find silvers unless they're at the top. So that's big for Falcon. That time difference could actually be pretty significant.
Certainly could. And we have Bite as our winner, guessing 4 and scoring 19 points on the leaderboard. Congratulations.
Now, I think the real question for Shady here is, what happens if Ganon goes sideways? We don't have half magic, so we're gonna require magic refills in order to do that fight. I don't know how comfortable shadyforce feels with his Master Sword again. It might have been a while. I've seen him do it, so he can do it. It's just a question of will he be consistent enough at it to hold off Falcon's significant equipment advantage.
So, my Master Sword Ganon isn't exactly up to snuff at all. So the question that I have, because I don't actually know the answer here, is do you need to have more than one magic bar if you're only going to use lamp and do 2 spins per piece on phase 4 with Master Sword?
If I recall correctly, it's like 24 lamp usages with full magic bar. It could be 12. I think it's 24.
So it's 24, he would need some triples.
Well, not only that, you can get triples if you have a good warp cycle, but realistically with lamp, you're only going to get doubles for each cycle on average. So, I mean, you probably need more than one magic bar, unless you have a perfect setup.
Yeah, you got to assume he's going to also be spamming it at first just to make sure he gets the glitch.
And even if he doesn't, I mean, you could do the fight with, let's just say you bring in some blue potions. You could do it with Fire Rod and get guaranteed triples. That's go mode 1 hour 40 minutes and some change for Falcon. I don't know. Depends on your comfort, really.
And to redeem myself for the soccer fans there, that is the 101st minute for Falcon for go mode.
Boom. So nearly, 13-minute difference between the two of them for go mode. It's really shadyforce's race to lose here. I mean, he's in Gauntlet 4 already. I'm about to head into Gauntlet 5 after this.
Yeah, 13 minutes is an awful lot of time to have to make up, even with the equipment that he has on his hands. Especially where he still has the 2 dungeons to make through and then get into Ganon's Tower.
Well, here's a potential pitfall for shadyforce. Going to walk into the Lamola's 2 room, which is going to be Trinex today. He does not have a lot of magic at disposal here. I think he does have 1 potion.
And now, if I'm not mistaken, the Ice Head's not going to drop ice in this room because it doesn't have the capability of doing so based on the physics of the room itself. So he doesn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, this room is definitely not programmed for that purpose, and in fact, you'll see that when we get to the next room, assuming that shadyforce makes this last Fire Rod. Oh no!
He does have a potion. But that does put him in a worse spot for Ganon.
Yeah, we will almost certainly see him go pick up potions before he even considers the Ganon fight. He'll probably check every chest on the way up as well.
And that's the key there. If he checks the chest and he finds silvers, he's pretty much a lock here. If he doesn't find the silvers and doesn't go grab a potion, we could certainly have a situation where Falcon makes up the time.
Yeah, because, I mean, really at this point, for Shady, you're just trying not to run out of magic. You just need to have enough to get through these fights. Here's that bugginess of that previous room on display. That shell is transparent, translucent, I don't know. It's got the magic cape on.
Clearly, Trinex had shed a shell prior to getting into the Landmo room, perhaps needing to do so to fit all 3 necks and get another one to grow.
Yeah, I mean, it did look a little smaller from my perspective than the one that we had previously seen. That could have been the next showing effect, but 3 next down, 3 more to go potentially. We could find another one here. And well, actually, was that one of the Campion?
Where this is a Mothula, a Moldorm area, Trinex is unavailable for.
Oh, we haven't seen a Mothula yet, though, now that you mention it, so
yeah, we have not.
That might actually be our Moldorm 2.
Yep, we can certainly see Mothula up here. Like, the only bosses that we can see up here are Coldstare, Vitreous, Moldorm, Helmasaur, and Mothula. We know we're not going to see Coldstare, so it's between Vinny, Moldorm, Helma, and Mothula.
I'm feeling Vitreous, personally.
I want Helma because it's the funnier one, but I think we're going to see a Moth.
Yeah, Helma Copper's pretty good. Alright, the first 2 Argus fights for Falcon here, making quick work out of them. Going just for straight slashes. We'll see if shadyforce checks all these chests. It looks like he will.
Smart play by him. Still wanting another sword just for that peace of mind, and silvers for the ease of everything.
Yeah, I think if Shady had a sword available to him climbing up this tower, silvers would be basically irrelevant. But now that we know that he's not going to get the 3rd or 4th sword, definitely looking for him.
And we have a Vidi.
Alright, well, with no poisonous goop to worry about, we'll opt to try and do some side slashes here. This is basically the deboost strategy without the deboost.
And the beautiful thing of it is, with the way the lightning is coded, it cannot come over this side, so all he has to do is avoid the eyes and not worry about the lightning at all. Hit a couple spins here, and then take the eyeball out with a few of those arrows.
He's making the positioning here look deceptively easy. This is not as easy as... I mean, it is the easiest version of the spin strat, but he's just dodging these eyeballs like it's nothing.
I do like that he did at one point get close enough to hit the eye with the spin while it was coming out to do the lightning to get that little extra damage there.
Yeah, it's a nice thing that if you have your Master Sword equipped, Tempered Sword, you see the effects more of it. You might shoot 1 less arrow because of that, but still pretty nice.
It actually did look like he hit with 7 arrows there and killed him. I think the 8th one overshot. And the insurance policy chest there not yielding anything except for a piece of heart, so we're going to see a full Master Sword piece for Ganon here from shadyforce.
Yeah, it's convenient to get the health refill, but you're really hoping for half magic or, silvers in that scenario.
Interestingly enough, I think Falcon just checked the Super Bunny chests.
Yeah, I don't think we saw that from Shady. Maybe he took the south portal to get up to the mountain?
Because either he checked those, or I just saw him in a weird position for coming into the room, but I thought he was checking them.
Well, as Falcon makes his way into Turtle Rock for the second time to refight Argus, this is shadyforce preparing for Ganon. We'll see if he stops to try and get more potions, as that is on the table, but an hour 46 minutes, you gotta think your opponent's coming up on you, and with Master Sword ahead of you, you don't want to give up that time. Shady's going for it.
Yeah, with the Master Sword, every second counts as far as he's concerned at this point.
So this makes this fight considerably more difficult. Not only does shadyforce need to get 12 total spins for this first 2 phases each, we'll have to do so without invulnerability from the cape, as he needs every drop of magic he's got.
Trying to bounce off of that trident there. Doing a phenomenal job of getting his hits in and avoiding damage at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that Shady is going for, you know, a difficult execution Ganon fight. This is low percent by most standards. No half magic to work with, just Master Sword. And as I mentioned, he made a masterful work of the first phase. It's these fire bats that are probably the most deadly. Once you get to this fourth phase, it's just a matter of getting Torch Glitch, really.
Yep, pop through phase 2 relatively quickly there.
Four total spins for phase 3. See if Shadyforce can make it all the way to phase 4, and if we can get that Torch Glitch.
Yeah, so we have 24 spins left. We had Light World for the arrows. Likely something like a K45, perhaps.
Yeah, that seems pretty likely, or that Graveyard Ledge. I really like Shady's decision to wait to light that torch. Unfortunately, he didn't get the cape spin, but he was set up for a triple there. Will lose out on the second, actually, for that cycle, and you'll see... I thought he was going to wait for the warp, actually, but I think he's just trying to get as many as he can in, perhaps feeling that his opponent's on his heels.
And where he can get the 2 off of each of his lamp hits there, definitely is doable with the 1 magic bar.
Yeah, so 24 total... Oh, no.
Ooh, that though... Yikes.
Now, that does still make it within the realm of possibility, as long as he doesn't use any magic before phase 4. We might see him buy potions, though. Wow, this guy is... I was going to say, this guy's about to be a trooper. And this is really more for safety. Now, with having potions at his disposal, more health, Shadyforce can do all the more aggressive things you'd see in a low percent fight of Ganon. You'll see him go for triples. You might see him take some damage in the Fire Bat phase to get some extra spins in. This will probably be a more impressive looking fight from Shadyforce.
For sure, and I still don't think we're going to get enough of a time difference for Falcon to make it up through GT here, as he's taking the full right side piece, going through Hope Room, over to the Tile Room, going to hit the Compass Room first, so he's not going to have his big key at number 4.
Yeah, it would be nice for him to find silvers or maybe half magic. He wouldn't need the half magic, so silvers would be good for him, but at this point, going full right will take so much more time that it won't save time. That being said, I mean, Ganonfall's not exactly, out of the question. We've already seen one so far in this race, and Shadyforce was having a pretty commanding fight, all things considered.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised to see the fall, just with how clean everything had been to that point. I don't anticipate we're going to see another one from him.
Interesting to see that Shady's not going to try and use some of this extra magic to, get some cape, spins in. But, I mean, it's a pretty effective fight overall. He's definitely getting his spins in where he can.
Yeah, and he definitely did get a quick enough phase 1 and 2 in that first fight, where I don't think he's too terribly worried about that. He's probably just thinking, oh, never mind, here comes the cape.
Alright, so Shadyforce opting to use his magic in a more dangerous cycle. I think I do agree with that. I kind of expected him to do it sooner, but yeah, it makes sense here.
And Falcon now grabbed their big key and is going to make their way up the tower. Now, our tracker is very pleased, I think, to have hit another button.
Yeah, it had been quite a while. What was it that we found in Right Side GT that Merc, our tracker today, 249, perhaps it can illuminate us on that?
We found the book.
Oh, took a look in a book. It was a Reading Rainbow up there on the right side, wasn't it?
Yes. Clearly, LeVar Burton has visited the Guinness Tower a time or two.
Truly legendary man, wouldn't surprise me.
He might actually even be Link.
Certainly a link to literacy, but, you know, public heroes aside, Shadyforce here, trying to take down a public enemy number 1. Looking at his 24 Master Sword spins here on Ganon in Phase 4. Seeing him switch to the Fire Rod, this is probably a more comfortable fight for him.
For sure. And Falcon opting to use the safety room here in Guinness Tower, eating a little bit more of that time.
Yeah, now if we see like another fall from Shady here, this could actually be a little closer to competitive. It would take a basically perfect GT for Falcon to get within the range of one fall here.
With the liberal use of the potions, though, we might also, off a fall, see another trip to the witch hunt.
Yeah, that would help. So Shadyforce here getting triples, though. I mean, he is really crushing it. He's actually going to wait for this warp cycle so he can get a triple here. Really smart fight. I don't even think he knows or thinks that he has another potion. He's just that confident in his remaining magic. In the meantime, Falcon making his way over to what we know is Trinex 1, or yeah, Trinex 1 Lambo 2 room, whatever you prefer to call it. We'll be making his way up to the Moldorm 2 room for Vitreous shortly.
Yep, and with that gold sword, making very quick work of the fact that he can just smack those heads around. And on his last bit of magic, Shadyforce able to take Ganon down.
Yeah, that was really speaking to Shadyforce's confidence there. That was a really, really slick-looking fight, particularly in Phase 4. Just automatic.
Absolutely. So get your GGs in chat there for Shadyforce, finishing at around 1:54:41. I don't have IRC up, so I can't give the official time.
Finished an official place, first place time of 1 hour, 54 minutes, and 42 seconds in SRL. And we'll see if we can get him to join us here for an interview. Actually, it looks like he's about to. And we are joined by the victor of the race today, Shadyforce. Congratulations, GG. How are you feeling?
Hey, thanks so much. My heart's still kind of pounding, if I'm honest.
Was that fall to Ganon a major contributor to that?
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, please don't let me lose the race. And it's bad enough if it's like on my own, right? But I'm letting down my teammates if I just like butcher the ending like that and then lose the race. I was so relieved once I managed to get the dot done in and my opponent hadn't finished. But my heart is still beating. It's like, oh, this is tough. This is stressful.
Seeing your teammates in chat, they had no doubt that you were going to pull that off with relative ease when you went in there for that second fight with Ganon. And the fact that you did it on that last bit of magic you had was quite phenomenal.
That was quite cool, actually. I did have another potion. I bought 2 in the shop, but I thought I might be able to squeak it without using the other potion. And I thought it would be a nice finish, which I managed to pull off, so that was good. The phase 4 in the second fight was so much better because I'm much more comfortable with the fire rod. It's what I practice all the time. So
you can tell you're getting the triples because that's just what you're used to. However, I do believe we used both potions though. You used
did
one
I seriously? No.
Yeah, in Phase 3 and Phase 4, didn't you?
No, I used one potion after I depleted the cape, but then I kept all of that magic through the second phase, so I would have still had the second potion.
Oh, so if you didn't use cape at all in Phase 2, yeah, so you would. Wow, that's actually pretty impressive, all things considered. Because I mean, that's probably the time when you'd want to, when you'd see a lot of runners use cape in a low percent fight. But no, I mean, I know what you're talking about with those triples, man. It just feels more natural.
I'm looking at my ending screen as well, the credit screen, which shows my ending items, and it does show one blue potion as well, so I can verify.
That's impressive.
But yeah, that was stressful. This is such a ridiculous seed. Like for me, the way I played it, I don't think I did well at all, and I made a lot of bad decisions. Some of them kind of worked out, some of them didn't.
I don't think any of the decisions were necessarily bad because every time you made a decision, it seemed like you were going to the most dense location you could to try and find your progression.
Well, one example of a decision that in hindsight I don't like is when I went to Devon Mountain instead of just going to Sahasrara and Eastern, because Eastern's fully clearable at this stage once I get the lamp. And I decide to pop up to the mountain, and then as I'm going there, I'm thinking, I actually can't do much there except get the save and quit point. So my plan then was to just go carry on what I'm doing, get the save and quit point, and then go to Eastern, which is where I should have been in the first place. But then I found a mirror, and then the mirror opens up the rest of it, and then I found the mitts, and I think, wow, this is a bad play that actually kind of played off, worked out for me. So that was a relief. But a lot of other things I did, I think, were a bit dumb, and they were a bit more unfortunate. Like I managed to get to 4 different bosses and have to mirror out of all 4 of them, which is I think a new record for me in Randomizer.
Yeah, you weren't the only one in this seed.
Yeah, I imagine it might have caught out Falcon as well. My problem was the hookshot was sitting right there in pod. I could have had that ages ago. If you just dip the pendant and then like go to Eastern afterwards, you have the hookshot and then you have it for those boss fights. And for the 2 cold stairs, I was just trying to be clever using ether to clear out some of the rooms, hoping that it wasn't cold stair, and then it was cold stair anyway, and then I have to mirror out, so it was just really bad.
Hey, I gotta say, I was really hyped to see you attempt to do what was basically a sword beam stare with arrows. That's a very rarely seen tech. Even if it didn't end up working out, it was just really cool to see it showcased.
Yeah, I only had half a bar, so I had to get all 4 of them to work, and I missed the first one, so that was sad. I was practicing it a little bit earlier today, just in case it would come up, and it did come up, and then I managed to mess it up anyway, so that's embarrassing.
It still looked really cool, just the fact that you tried it, though.
Yeah, worth a try, but I would have needed to get all 4, and they are tricky. The timing's quite tricky.
Well, so we're looking at on Restream phase 3 of Falcon's fight here. So this will be over shortly here on the Restream. I do want to ask because I know that Falcon's going to go over to SG French or Francais to do an interview as well. So I kind of want to condense some of this stuff. Your team right now elevates to 3-2 in the league. You have a very strong couple of teams currently at the top of it. Kind of rando retired, and I like big boots. Do you have any plans to try and prepare yourselves for trying to get atop of them? Because this does put you at the next highest place in the division.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that we've actually played most of the guys at the top. And next week we're playing Big Boots. So that is going to be a huge match. That's going to be Mystery Week. So our plan is fairly simply, we got to beat the guy who likes Big Boots. And if we do that, that helps us get to the top of the leaderboard. But we've already played the other 2 guys at the top this week and on our first week. So it's interesting. It's interesting how it's working out. I think we still have a good shot, but it's a very strong group. I find that Kakariko is like clearly the strongest division in the whole league. So it's always going to be a tough one.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the playoff picture as well. And shadyforce, bringing your team to the 3rd victory actually keeps you guys in contention for that run. We'll take a lot of wins and some victories against some very difficult teams, but I'm excited to see the rest of the play this season from you. With that, we have Falcon crossing over the finish line here. The official SRL time of 2 hours, 1 minute, and 25 seconds. Get your GGs in chat for him, folks. We will see if we can get him to join us here for a quick interview as well before he heads on over to the French side.
And that finish time shows a decent time made up just based on the fact that the gold sword was in his hand. As I believe go mode was about 13 minutes separate and only about 7 minutes separated the actual completion.
Oh, Shady, did we tell you about where those swords were? Also, we're joined by Falcon.
Good evening.
Hey, GG Falcon.
GG's, guys.
GG shadyforce. Good one. Congrats.
Yo, thank you so much.
So you were stooped by a couple of boss that you could not do, I guess.
Yeah, both Argus fights and both Cold Stare fights I had to mirror out of. and then
Both
come
cold
back at
stare.
a
Oh
later
my
point.
god. Yeah, I managed to fight one cold stare first time, I believe. Where was it
Yeah.
again? I don't remember.
One of them was
Eastern.
in
Eastern, definitely, yeah.
East-
The other was maybe Seaftown.
Desert,
or-
I think.
Yeah, it was Desert and Eastern for the Cold Stairs, and then it was Misery Mire and Turtle Rock for the Argyle.
I looked everywhere for that, hookshot.
Awful places for those bosses without a hook shot.
Yeah. Worst thing is that it was a seed that ultimately the hookshot could be kind of avoid without an Randomizer, let's say. Well, if we pulled some trick at the end, but
Yeah, I was worried about that. In a way, I was a little bit relieved when I found the first Argus, because it did means it wasn't a hover seed, basically. So,
yeah. Oh,
well, the
I
way it was a
cannot
little.
hover, but there's another trick I can do.
But the Muldarm bounce, yeah, I've close, but I've never actually pulled it off.
Yeah, well, I have not practiced this for months, so I'm not sure I would have tried that. But anyway,
Double
that was
fortunate.
interesting for that.
I was going to ask, with the Moldorm bounce, is it something you can do with a Vitreous?
I don't.
I have no idea. Not like I
Oh, that's a
could
good point. Actually, I didn't even think of that.
practice this.
Well, because I think the
Probably
extended
not.
knockback do.
No, probably not, because the trick takes advantage of the bounce that you have against Moldorm. So it's pretty sure that it's the only boss that could allow this trick. But
Like, I
anyways,
think maybe it could happen with like a Helmasaur, but it would be very specific and precise. I don't think anybody practices that.
yeah, maybe. But it never happens anyway. So, we had to find that hookshot, and I guess that since I made several mistakes on that scene, and I just elect to ignore the overworld and try pendants first, because my calculation was that it was my only chance.
I think the only mistake you could say you made was actually a logical play of not going up Death Mountain as quickly as you could, because of the fact that at the time you saw that you would only be able to get 2 logical items. Little did you know that each one would lead to clearing out the mountain entirely.
Yeah, of course I didn't know that, and I wait before going because I had access only to 2 items. But well, my big mistake was to mess up that icebreaker that I practiced 2 days ago, and I just forgot the steps at the end, and then died in Ice Palace. That was very unfortunate.
Oh, well, I gotta ask, Falcon, what's next for It's Mitts? You got Mystery Week, with Link finds a way, and then there's 2 of you racing for it. Have you guys determined, who's gonna be the representatives?
Not yet. I've raised the 3 first weeks, so I don't know if I'm going to do the 4th week. We'll see what my other teammates. I see that Cadenza is willing to do the mystery, and I have no idea about the Little Massacre, but we'll talk about it and see if I do it. I do like mystery, and I'm comfortable with all the modes that it could give, so we'll see.
It'll
I
be
don't know.
interesting to see, because this is basically a fight for the 2nd place position in the division right now, and you're really close with I Like Big Boots, depending on what happens this week and next week for them.
Yeah, we had a good 2 first weeks, so we'll hope we can keep winning a bit. But there are some very big teams coming up. Just the French Canadian, they have 3 very strong players. So this will be a hard week, and there's another one, I think. The Ganon Gone Wild is quite a good team too. So we'll see.
Well, speaking of the French community here with, Link to the Past, I believe we have a restream, and they're going to want you for an interview for
Yeah,
it.
probably.
on
So I
SDF.
guess I
That's it.
should maybe leave you. So, thanks for the stream and everything, and have a good evening.
Hey, we really appreciate the show that you put on. And folks, if you haven't seen these two runners outside of this restream, you should check out their Twitch channels. Go follow them. And if you are a French speaker, actually, go check out SG Français, which is as I'm used to because I speak Spanish and I don't know how it's. Anyway, SGFR.
Thanks.
GG Falcon again.
Thanks, GG too.
Good luck in your next one.
Alrighty, well, as we finish this up, Shady, any closing thoughts before we kind of tie up some business and with the schedule and all that?
Just that I love Randomizer and I want there to be more Randomizers. Can you make that happen, Uday?
I can maybe help more people talk about it. I don't know. I mean, maybe the main tournament. I don't have any sway there. I am not
Can you
officially
arrange it for
associated
mystery?
affiliated.
It's just a fun mode and I love it. But thanks so much for commenting, guys. I really appreciate all the work you guys do.
Oh, we appreciate being able to commentate on such a qualified and clearly capable runner.
Yeah, this is definitely a fun time. Thanks for putting on display of unusual tech as well. That was fun to talk about, Shady.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime.
Alrighty, well, looking forward on the schedule tonight, we've had already quite a few matches. However, if you're chomping at the bit for more A Link to the Past Randomizer, you do have, well, the league actually. We have one in progress on SG5 between Will Polped for Food and But We're Buddies. Also one on the ALTTPR League between Team Hot Dish and I Like Big Boots. Another in-division matchup. We also have a 9-10, two more races. Sable Tender versus Data Plant from Sphere Affinity and Forfeiters Are Us on SG2. And SG4 Guardians of the Galaxy Brain is Hyrule Track. And Field, that matchup between Ricky of Kokiri and Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna on SG4 and 9-10. Looking forward, we have a third one in the ALTTPR League 2. Lamp of the Blind versus Magic Lamp Oil. You have Nashi versus Durand. And finally, to conclude the night, 10-10. The Immortals, represented by Roach788, and Clown Parade, versus represented by Purdy Wong. That was a mouthful. Irritable Penguin, you want to close this out? I've been Uday Ministik.
Sure, I can do that. Everybody, it's a fun race to see, great race to watch. A lot of that comes down to the fact that our wonderful tracker Merc249 was able to keep those buttons pressed and those items highlighted for us. So if you'd be so kind as to go ahead and give him a follow. Tracking is one of the more thankless jobs in the community, and the people that do it are a bunch of wonderful individuals, and they definitely deserve the support and the follows from all of us. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, and we will catch you on the next episode.
See you next time, folks.